Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is an episode of the evolution of the Epstein Chronicles. Today, we're going to go back to 2016, and the article is from the Sun Sentinel, and it has to do with the sweetheart deal that Jeffrey Epstein got and how the victims felt violated by him getting this sweetheart deal. And this is an important thing, right? This is context for us to go by and for us to look for when we add it to the big picture of what is going on and how he skated free. It just makes you wonder who else was involved. With all of the evidence leading us to where we are right now, you have to ask yourself, who was protecting this man? How was he able to score this sweetheart deal? How was he able to do it on the undercover status that they did it on without these victims knowing, doing it so the media didn't know what was going on, so there wouldn't be too much coverage of it? There's so much going on that is so abnormal for this case. How did the most prolific sex offender in the history of America, perhaps, get the most lenient deal ever? 6 days out of the 7 he was in jail, he was able to leave for 12 hours for work release. He was able to hire his own security detail to protect him in this wing of the jail. He didn't go to prison. He didn't go to state prison or federal prison. He was at the lockup. It's just so absolutely unreal what this man was able to do and the way he was able to game the system. Whereas you or I, there is no way. Do you really think that would be the case for us? And even for normal rich people, this isn't the case. So it's something deeper, folks. There is something deeper there. This man is so protected, or was so protected, and his criminal enterprise, his RICO case, that's exactly what this should be, the criminal enterprise of Jeffrey Epstein and his associates, is absolutely and positively one of the most heinous things we have ever seen in this country at such a grand scale. This man is absolutely one of the most disgusting and prolific abusers of women in the history of this country, folks. And this man was protected for years and years by a complicit media that does not care about the truth. And these girls were crying out even back in 2016, before this all blew up again, about how their rights were crapped on and how their rights were violated and how the court and the federal and state prosecution collaborated with the defense to make sure he got off. And they did. Just go check some of the emails. Check some of the way that they were talking about with each other behind the scenes. How they both took the same approach of attacking the girls because of their MySpace pages. It's absolutely, positively unacceptable, folks. The two-tiered justice system must be destroyed. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. All right, let's jump into this article. It's from 2016, and the paper it's from is the Sun Sentinel. Nearly 8 years after billionaire sex offender Jeffrey Epstein got a sweetheart deal from the criminal justice system, a judge is preparing to rule on a rare civil lawsuit against the federal government that alleges prosecutors violated 2 teen girls' rights as crime victims. Epstein, now 62, pleaded guilty to state charges in Palm Beach County in July 2008 and admitted he hired local underage girls for erotic massages and sex at his South Florida mansion. He was jailed for 13 months of an 18-month sentence and served a year of house arrest. Boy, he really got the book thrown at him, right, folks? He really got punished for what he did. I mean, you get that kind of punishment, well, you're never going to want to do this again. He should have been chemically castrated. Physically castrated too, honestly, if they could have swung it somehow. I mean, the CIA loves to drop people in black sites so much. Why don't they bring Jeffrey Epstein somewhere and give him the business? Oh yeah, that's right, because they're protecting him. The leniency and unusual circumstances of his treatment raised many eyebrows because other sex offenders received much harsher punishments for comparable crimes. The maximum possible punishment for the 2 offenses was 15 years. And remember, those were the kick-down versions of the offenses. If they would have went federal, he would have went to jail for the rest of his life. But no, he was protected at a federal level, so they kicked it down to the state. They're like, come on, we'll figure something out. Let's go have ourselves some $300 steaks, and we'll figure out how to screw the victims. 2 adult women who say Epstein sexually abused them when they were minors filed a federal civil suit against the U.S. Department of Justice in July 2008, alleging federal prosecutors violated their rights as crime victims by not consulting with them before signing an agreement to not prosecute Epstein. Lawyers for the women, referred to as Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2, say they were either not informed or they were misled into thinking Epstein could face federal prosecution after he pleaded guilty to 2 state charges of felony solicitation of prostitution and procuring a minor for prostitution. After years of legal wrangling between the prosecutors and the women's lawyers, U.S. District Judge Kenneth Mara recently said he hopes the case will finally be decided within the next few months, possibly after a non-jury trial in federal court in West Palm Beach. The civil lawsuit is so uncommon that the possible repercussions are still unclear. The judge could rule the U.S. Attorney's Office and U.S. Department of Justice either consulted with the women to the extent required by law, or that the women were not entitled to the level of consultation or notification their lawyers say they should have received. Even if the judge rules that federal prosecutors did not adequately consult with the victims, legal experts say the women could not receive monetary damages from the government. And lawyers say there is no chance that Epstein's sentence, which he already served, could be altered or that he could face more criminal charges related to these allegations. Epstein is suspected of sexually abusing 30 or more young women, court records show. Now a registered sex offender for life, he has reached confidential financial settlements with many of his alleged victims. Trying to take the Harvey Weinstein approach, right? But it's not going to work this time. He wasn't going to get off on it this time because these girls were not going to just go away. Virginia Roberts stood up tall and she told this son of a bitch, you know what? That's it. I'm not scared of you. You're not going to threaten me. You're not going to tell me that I'm going to live in fear for the rest of my life. Epstein made his fortune as a money manager and split his time between his Palm Beach mansion, his private Caribbean island, Little St. James, his Upper East Side Manhattan home, and residences in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Paris. The case has spawned numerous lawsuits and feverish international media coverage, especially after other young women alleged they were abused by Epstein, Britain's Prince Andrew, and well-known lawyer Alan Dershowitz. Buckingham Palace issued a rare denial, and Dershowitz has sued his accuser's lawyer, alleging he was defamed after they sued him for defamation. Yeah, come on, Dershowitz kept his underwear on, folks. You can't sue him for, he's not in trouble for that. Former President Bill Clinton and presidential hopeful Donald Trump have also been criticized for socializing with Epstein, though neither was accused of any criminal activity. The 2 women are represented... Jesus, stupid. Sorry about this, folks. A little pause here. The 2 women are represented by Fort Lauderdale lawyer Bradley Edwards and Paul Cassell, a law professor and former federal judge from Utah who is a nationally known victim rights advocate. They want the judge to rule the women's rights under the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act were violated. Some of their proposed penalties include invalidating the non-prosecution agreement, forcing prosecutors to meet with them to discuss the case and possible prosecution of Epstein, forcing prosecutors to apologize, and forcing prosecutors to pay financial sanctions and victims' legal fees. Victims are not entitled to be paid damages according to court records. There is good reason to believe that if the prosecutors had exposed their dealings to scrutiny by Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2, they would not have reached a sweetheart deal, Edwards wrote in court records. Prosecutors wanted the non-prosecution agreement kept from public view because of the intense public criticism that would have resulted from allowing a politically connected billionaire who had sexually abused more than 30 minor girls to escape from federal prosecution with only a county jail sentence, Edwards also wrote in court filings. And that's exactly what they were trying to do. Like I said, they were doing it in private. They wanted to keep it in private, and they wanted to make sure that the public didn't know, that you didn't know, folks, because they knew you'd go ham. They knew you'd go nuts over this. And they weren't wrong. Look where we are now. Look how deep we all are into this case now. Look at the coverage it's getting now from the independent media, from guerrilla journalists, from content creators. This is what they were scared of. And they had every right to be, because they're no longer able to do what they wanted to do. Not since we're connected with the internet the way we are. So their days of pulling the wool over our eyes are long over. Prosecutors filed court records revealing the federal investigation of Epstein began in 2006 at the request of the town of Palm Beach Police. The non-prosecution agreement was signed in September 2008, 9 months before Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges. Among the reasons for the agreement, federal prosecutors wrote, were that Epstein was being prosecuted by the Palm Beach State Attorney's Office, and the agreement preserved and protected the victim's rights to get financial restitution from Epstein. What a load of horse manure. It was to protect themselves and protect the rich and powerful people that he ran with. It was to protect the blackmail operation. Prosecutors wrote some victims were hostile to the prosecution of Epstein, and some did not want to be identified by having to go to trial. Oh, I wonder why. A letter written in 2011 by former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, who headed the office from 2005 to 2009, when the decision was made, said the negotiations were like a year-long assault on prosecutors and labeled the defense launched by Epstein's star-studded team of lawyers more aggressive than any Acosta and his prosecutors had ever encountered. Our judgment in this case, based on the evidence known at the time, was that it was better to have a billionaire serve jail time and register as a sex offender and pay his victims restitution than risk a trial with a reduced likelihood of success. What? A reduced likelihood of success? You put this monster in front of a jury of 12 of his peers, and I highly doubt he's getting off. Now you let a judge decide? You let the lawyers decide? Well, here we are, folks. Once again, we'll investigate ourselves. We'll punish ourselves. Acosta conceded in the letter that the highly unusual treatment Epstein received while in jail on state charges undermined the purpose of a jail sentence. Convicts sentenced to more than a year are supposed to serve their time in state prison, not a local jail, and Epstein was allowed to leave the jail 6 days a week during the day to work at his West Palm Beach office for several hours on work release programs. Several hours? Try 12. State prosecutors said they had concerns about some of the victims' credibility when they made their decision to charge Epstein. Such a lie. Such a lie. Such a lie. Such a lie. At a recent court hearing, federal prosecutors said, for the first time, they think the two women may have been complicit in Epstein's crimes by receiving payments to recruit other girls for him. This is disgusting. This is your federal prosecutors at work, folks. They're blaming the victims for being part of his ring. Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2. Absolutely, positively disgusting. Your Honor, we believe there's an issue about whether or not Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2 may have been complicit in the offenses. If you will, specifically, that they themselves procured additional young women for Mr. Epstein and were paid commissions or referral fees for it. Assistant U.S. Attorney Dexter Lee said, according to a recently filed transcript of the November 23rd hearing. Remember that name, folks, Dexter Lee. Lee, because let's be honest, that's what he said about these girls. That's his position. Is he still a state prosecutor? And if he is, well, he should be fired right away. Lee told the judge that the law suggests if someone was complicit in the actual offense, that they are not entitled to be a victim and can invoke no rights under the Victims' Rights Act. Who put these people up to this? Who put them up to it? Now I'm getting pissed reading this article. Who put them up to it? With it, which intelligence agency was overseeing this whole thing? Had to be the CIA, right? It had to be those scumbags in the CIA because they're the only ones that could exert this sort of pressure. Jack Goldberger, a Palm Beach County lawyer who was one of several members of Epstein's defense team, told the Sun-Sentinel reasonable prosecutors and reasonable defense lawyers reached an agreement to resolve the Jeffrey Epstein case in the manner it was resolved. He declined to comment on other reasons for the terms of the agreement. No, you're a liar too, Jack Goldberger. They reached this agreement because Epstein was being run by intelligence, being protected by very powerful people, had dirt on people like Bill Clinton, etc., and they didn't want their jackpot of a blackmail operation to go by the wayside. So they pulled the strings they had to pull. They made it a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. They made it a whole bunch of gray area. They made it a whole bunch of an area where they are so able to navigate the waters and avoid actual law that none of us were the wiser. And then when you bring it up, well, how dare you? The victims are complicit. This is the state telling them that. No wonder girls don't go and say that they were abused by these sort of people. Nobody believes them, obviously. If Judge Morrow rules the U.S. government violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act, it will have no effect on prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein. Due process and double jeopardy would require the agreement that was reached by the state and federal government be honored. Though victims have legal rights to consult with prosecutors, victims have no right to dictate how the case is resolved by prosecutors, Goldberger said. Can he be prosecuted in the future? The answer is really clear. No, it simply can't happen. Oh yeah? Joke's on you, jerk-off. The joke is on you, Goldberger the jerk-off. He was prosecuted again, and he was about to get the book thrown at him, and this whole entire thing was about to get blown up. But here we are, and now he's dead. Was it suicide? Was he murdered? Who knows? But one thing is perfectly apparent from this article and all the different articles we have read and all the information we have come across in this case. Jeffrey Epstein was not operating in a vacuum. Jeffrey Epstein was being protected. Jeffrey Epstein was being run as an intelligence asset by somebody. And that's it, folks. And you ask for evidence of that, I will just direct you to people like the Ari Ben Menashe, Israeli agent. I will direct you to people like Whitney Webb, who has covered this. And I will direct you to people who have been talking about this from the very, very, very beginning. If you would like to contact me, folks, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you would like to support the show, you can do that in the description box by clicking on the GoFundMe link. And for everybody who has donated to the GoFundMe already, I couldn't be any more blown away by the generosity and support of this show. You folks are absolutely, positively the best audience a guy could ever ask for. I'll be back later on tonight with our installment of the Daily Drop. I hope everybody enjoyed their Sunday and is enjoying the rest of their evening. And remember, folks, 2020, you know what time it is. 2020 is when we start turning the predators into the prey.